front seats if there are any empty. So, as we begin our final panel, number 4, Reimagining Healthcare for Young India, Longevity, Lifestyle and Preventive Care, it is my honor to invite our moderator, Ambika ma'am, to please join us on the stage. And I would request everyone to please extend a huge round of applause while we welcome her. It's an honor having you here with us, ma'am, again. And now, I would like to request to introduce our panelist for the session, Dr. Lalit Kanodia, Consultant, Clinical Operations at Apollo Medicals Private Limited. Can we all extend a huge round of applause while we welcome him on the stage? He is a clinician and healthcare leader working at the intersection of hospital systems and digital health transformation. Over 2 decades, he has worked with leading institutions, including Apollo Hospitals, Medanta, KPMG, Apollo 24 by 7, and Tata 1MG, building high-quality clinical and tech-enabled care models. At Tata 1MG, as the VP, Hospitals and Corporate Services, he led national-scale operations with full P&L responsibility and strengthened hospital partnerships to expand patient-centric access. He brings strong clinical depth and strategic execution. So we would like to extend a very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. And now I would request ma'am to please take over.
Well, I hope you guys hope you all enjoyed your lunch because the next panel is on health. So clearly we're going to be discussing what we ate as well. So this panel is Reimagining Healthcare for Young India, Longevity, Lifestyle and Preventive Care. When we really talk about preventive care, of course, we'll get into all the aspects. We obviously look at preventive care, health over curative. Now, before we introduce, I just want to have take you through the context of this panel. Now, India stands at a critical health inflection point. We are a young nation. In fact, we are the youngest nation. Yet our disease burden is aging fast. Non-communicable diseases, whether it's mental health, lifestyle-related conditions, are increasingly affecting people, and not just old people, people in their productive ages, quietly undermining livelihoods, productivity, and long-term economic strength. Our healthcare system largely responds after people really fall sick, even though everyday choices do shape most health outcomes. The real challenge before young India is not just access to treatment, but how workplaces, digital platforms, incentives, and daily habits influence health over decades. Now, our conversation here, Dr. Lalit, is going to be, we want to focus on the shift from episodic sick care to sustained preventive health care, building physical, mental, emotional, as well as spiritual resilience to safeguard both individual futures and India's human capital. So, I think to begin with, to set the context, of course, the questions, y'all are going to be asking your questions. How can India redesign its health system to move from a late stage treatment to early preventive? I think what I started with, how do we have that shift, rather than for preventive first rather than curative?
Okay, I think a very pertinent question and a very pertinent time. To make any shift, first of all, we need to understand the state of union. And to understand the state of union, we also need to understand in the healthcare ecosystem who are the key core pillars, right? There is a policymaker, the government role, which is distributed between central and government ecosystem, and to an extent even goes beyond. There are service providers like Apollos of the world, healthcare institutions, digital healthcare service providers. Then there are sponsors of the healthcare financing, essentially the insurers of the world, right? There are supporters of the healthcare ecosystem, and I would lean in over here in the employers of the world, right? They also support to a greater extent, especially when it comes to the young population, to the health of the nation. Now, with all those people, there has to be quite understanding what the role they play with respect to the preventive healthcare as we speak. Because essentially today, if we look at the data points, our healthcare ecosystem is meant or built for the illness management. Look at the hospitals, they don't prevent diseases. They treat
We only
disease.
go once we are actually unwell. How many of us really go and
Right.
say that, do you think this could happen to me or why? We actually go when we have a problem.
Right. So, especially in the hospitals, you will have OPD departments and IPD departments. In OPD, you will have a small department called Executive Health Checkup, which essentially is supposed to be a preventive health space. But more often than not, it's more about employee relationship with the hospitals and corporate relationship. But hospitals are deemed to be visited once I fall sick. When I go to the policymakers, even to an extent, Ayushman Bharat, if we say, is a biggest success story, it's covered so many million populations, billion in fact I would say. The coverage is essential for illness. There's no coverage for prevention. If I do any preventive management of my health, do I get incentivized or there is any coverage, as I say? Same goes for the insurers.
I was just coming to that because only after you fall unwell can you will not get insurance if you want to do a test before.
Absolutely. So if you look at the insurance ecosystem, the how the premium are created, there is an actuarial science behind it. We look at the population data, we look at the health insights of the country, we look at the prevailing NCDs as you speak, and we create a risk stratification, and that's where the insurance premiums are derived. There is no or very few companies who does the dynamic pricing. Dynamic in the sense, if I inculcate good habits in terms of preventing myself getting ill, do I get a better premium? I get the same premium. If I'm, incentivized to do something better for my health, probably, and that's younger population is something they look at instant gratification, right? If I look at the employer status, I work in a corporate ecosystem wherein we do provide health and wellness solutions to the corporate world, right? The moment I go to a corporate, they say I have a fixed budget. I speak about ROI of having a healthy workplace. If I increase productivity, reduce absenteeism, and there is a term we'll talk about, presentism, right? So absenteeism is the cost you inculcate when the employees are not in the workplace. Presentism is the cost you inculcate when the employees is present on the workplace but not productive. The guy is mentally drained out, right?
So the ROI is obviously clearly there. And it
ROI is
affects indirectly, not just the workplace, it's affecting the economy of the country as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when we speak about mental health, again, that's a big challenge. If a person is not all there, obviously productivity is zero. But, Dr. Lalit, since we have the youngsters here, and when we really talk about a healthy population, we see, well, we're living longer years, but are we really healthy? And because we have the youth here talking about lifestyle diseases, the kind of food we eat, whether it is, getting food at the drop of a app, right? To eating something which is not important. Again, there's been this study which estimates that 50% of urban Indians do not meet physical activity guidelines also, right? And plus wrong eating habits. So this is not the best lifestyle we're living. I mean, they have all their life ahead, right? So lifestyle and mental health risks we see is increasing in the youth. Is this, do you think this is just underestimated as a long-term productivity and economic threat for employers? Of course, national economy as well, and how do you think we should be tackling it?
Okay, again, I go to the basics, and that's how I start. First of all, you need to understand the definition of being healthy. There is a WHO definition which says a complete physical, mental, social. So there are three components. In fact, with an adjective called complete, physical, mental, and social well-being. And that's where the healthy definition. So I don't think anybody would fall into a healthy definition by that pursuit. But anyway, relatively healthy is something we speak about. Now, the premise of the question what you have been asking is, there is a gradual shift we understand of the disease prevalence and incidence from an age which was far away to an age which is now more younger. To an extent which was less, to an extent which is now more. So, while there is an increase in life expectancy, there is no increase in the life quality. While there could be a decrementality on the life quality as per. Because what we are doing, we are getting more diseases at a younger age So we live more years with a disease or dependency. Now, how do we look at it? How do we, if have to be transformed, essentially first need to be understood what all preventive healthcare ecosystem means. What is that ROI as we speak? For youth, it's very interesting to understand. How many of you would go for an insurance at the age of 20 or 25?
Let's ask them that question.
Yeah, in fact,
Let's.
like
I mean, since y'all have eaten so much, let's see if kitna dum hai. How many of you actually would think of going in for an insurance, like Dr. Lalit is saying, at an earlier age? So there is awareness, clearly.
No, I go deeper.
Okay, so the next question.
Right. So when you speak about insurance, you speak about insurance for being ill. Do you know there is an insurance for not being ill?
Okay.
So there is an what we call as an OPD cover, OPD insurance, right?
Okay.
And it comes either as a bundle into your IP insurance, which is hospitalization, or it could be a standalone, which is very few, or it could be rider, right? In insurance, you understand there's a composite cover. There could be riders you can add on with some extra premium to it. And what this OPD cover essentially is, if you look at, you say, okay, hospitalization is one thing, which is maybe once in 5 or 10 years as an incidental, expense you incur. OPD is something you fall sick for acute conditions, and you pay out of the pocket most of the times. Maybe cough and cold, simple fever, typhoid, and all the stuff. But within OPD, there is also a wellness component, right? Wellness component is, I do preventive health check. And even if you see in IP insurance, there is always a annual health check, mostly part of your IP insurance. And I would like to ask you, how many of you actually have availed that AHC component of your IP insurance if you have taken that? And how many of you do it regularly? So see the number of hands.
Yeah. So that's the gap.
That's the gap. And now the gap, why there is a gap? For insurance companies, if I have to, be a little more political about it, they would not like you to get AHC at one context, but second context, they should get it done. Reason being, why they don't want to get AHC, because it's a cost for them.
Yeah.
But why they should get it done is because if you do and don't fall sick because you know your disease better, your incidental expenses, which are of higher magnitude at a later point of time, would bring down their actual cost of insurance payout at some point of time. But that is a long-term activity, 5 to 10 year span. That something has to be looked at from a ROI perspective, right? So what you guys need to understand, what if I'm taking any insurance cover, what are all those preventive health measures which are there bundled into my program? Just don't take it as a TNC tick. हाँ मुझे health insurance लेना है, that's a mandate, right?
Know what you're signing up for.
Know what you're signing for.
Sure.
What are the components? And it's not also knowing, it's also availing what is desired for you, right? So if there is and हम car insurance लेते हैं, right? You will take zero depth cover. You will take engine protection कि भैया यहाँ बारिश ज़्यादा होती है, engine खराब होगा तो I have to take that, right? You take all those small riders which has incrementality in the cost of the insurance, but in case of such events, you really, make real ROI of it.
Yeah.
So what I would seek, choose your insurance where you have preventive components and do avail those preventive components to a greater extent. Now there is also a shift. I'll also take it further.
Sure.
A lot of insurance companies are tying up with the digital health platforms, whereas they give you gamification, step counts, leaderboards, all those engagement tools which are meant for Gen Zs primarily. Do engage, evolve, find out the benefits, because the more you are part of that preventive health ecosystem, more you will be defying your illness coming earlier.
Okay, so we've spoken about preventive health. Of course, we've tried to, speak to them about insurance and knowing and choosing the right insurance. I think something which would interest the youngsters here would be, taking from your experience, when we talk about mental health issues, when we talk about stress, we talk about rising diabetes, we talk about obesity, and of course heart attacks. That's again on the rise amongst youngsters. How serious is that problem? And do you think the healthcare system is somewhere reacting late to that?
So no doubt about the seriousness. If we talk about some stats of the back of the mind, we have 100 million plus diabetes which are diagnosed, and another 60% population which is pre-diagnosed, pre-diabetes not yet diagnosed, right? So at the verge of being a diabetes at some point of time. 60% of our disease burden and GDP spend are on NCDs, non-communicable disease, inclusive diabetes, hypertension, cancers of the world. We have seen the facts and stats about obesity which is being circulated in the last few months or so. A recent study I was reading, almost 70% of 20 to 40 age group in corporate ecosystem suffer from at least one mental health issue. Now, anxiety is also a mental health issue if it sustains. Anxiety is a natural phenomena, right? But if anxiety sustains and impacts your productivity and life stage, that becomes a disease, right? So, mental health issues up to 70% in the workforce, right? So, the extent of penetration of such diseased condition in the ecosystem really talks about the severity of the condition.
Absolutely.
So, there is no doubt about it, it's there.
And it's going up.
Increasing.
Yeah.
It's increasing. Now, there are factors, there would be stress, there are pressures,
social media.
pressures of social kind, pressure of financial kinds, pressure of professional kinds, and even personal kinds. And we were talking on the lunch table also, there are a pressure of over tracking, right? There are gadgets which are spread across in the market wherein you can actually do the tracking of your health.
The wearables which you have.
The wearables, IOMTs we call as Internet of Medical Things, right? And they give you various outputs. I won't say everyone, but a lot of these are not typically medically verified or guided by experts. What is needed for you? What is suited for you? There is a personalization required for everything.
Yeah.
Not everything is meant for everyone, right? Do you really need to track your sleep? Do you really need to track your footstep? Do you really need to track your input of water?
Yeah.
What is meant for you? That is what you should know. You should know where to get this information from, because medical science is just not about ChatGPT or Google's of the world.
There's more to it, yeah.
There's more to it, and there are a lot of subjective interpretation we have to do. I have spent my 10 years of life just studying the books and doing the case studies, looking at the clinics and wards, then plus 15 years of field experience. That's why my knowledge gets sharpened on a day-to-day basis, and I can give you a 1-minute crux of, okay, if you have these things, maybe this is what you should track for. So, over-tracking also creates anxiety, right? That also is something we need to be sure of. What is that we are tracking? Is it relevant for me? It is customized to me at my life stage as of today, maybe which is not relevant today, maybe relevant after 10 years, right? So, those all personalization has to get into the place.
Okay, so yeah, let's ask you guys a question. How many of you are actually wearing or believe in wearable devices, like whether it's the watch or a ring? Okay, so we have. So the youth really hasn't clearly caught on to that. They really like what you were saying.
Right. So if I give just my personal example, which I may be an outlier, right now if you see, other than mobile, I don't have any trackable device. No ring, no watch. Watch would be simple analog one. Because I know I don't carry any pre-existing disease. I have a family history of hypertension. Right now, my tracking of, so what I need to track is my blood pressure, my resting heart rate, that's it. And my food intake calories.
So again, knowing what, it's personalization, right? So you know what you need to track.
Absolutely. And so as of today, I do once a year full AHC, annual health check.
A body check, yeah.
Which includes some specific cardiac markers, because I have a family history of a cardiac events. So that is what is customized to me.
Okay, well, thanks for that. But just going back to what I think what our youngsters also here want to know is when we talk about longevity. Again, there is here, India's life expectancy, has risen 7 to 70 years, right? But what you were saying, healthy life expectancy is estimated to be 8 to 10 years lower. Obviously, there's a gap. Now, it means that millions live longer, whether it's with diabetes, whether it's with cardiovascular disease. You were saying even cancer. We were talking about, illnesses of your mind. Policy-wise, or even let's take it even culturally, for the health span to be taken as mainstream aspiration for the young Indians, rather than only looking at health concern after illness. How can that shift, or how can the policy, or how can the gap be bridged?
Okay, again, going to the basics, the definition of longevity, is it just living longer? Is it just looking young? And it has to be outside in, then inside out, right? So you should not be worried about looking young, which is one facet of it. The longevity is all about having your body system and physiology being disease-free and sustainable to a greater extent. And I was giving examples. If after 60, you still have cognitive function as if you were below 40. You can walk without support even at the age of 75 or 80 even, right? Your renal systems, the excretory system as we call it, urinary system work in the tandem in a same fashion as it was working at age of 40. This is what longevity means to me from a medical science perspective. Now, so we can act upon something when we track that stuff. And we call it input and output metrics. Longevity is an output metric. The input metrics has to be clearly those parameters as I spoke about, which talks about your health status of your body, but not the look state of your body, right? So if you track those things, how do you make that shift towards what I need to do to make sure my muscle strength remains as is, so that I can sustain without support, walking or even climbing stairs at the age of 70. What I need to do. So if I need to do a muscle strength training starting from the age of 40, and this is the limit of muscle strength training I need to do. It may be cycling, it may be swimming, it may be gymming, it may be anything else, right? What kind of diet I need to be personalized for, right? If I'm a vegetarian, non-vegetarian, quasi-vegetarian, all those things are there. But based on so if I'm having a family history of diabetes or hypertension or some other diseases, what diet can be customized? And so diet is not just calories, right?
Yeah.
It also need to be specific to your disease conditions or maybe a disease condition which is existing in your families, so that you don't get such disease in your lifetime. Again, just to put a stat in the fact, diabetes for an example, if one of your parent is having a diabetes, you have a lifetime diabetes risk of almost 30%. If both of your parents have a diabetes, you have a lifetime risk of diabetes almost 70%. None of your parents are diabetic, your lifetime risk of diabetes is less than 10%. Considering your, general awareness of, your taking care of your own body. Now, if you know these facts and your lifetime risk of diabetes, probably this is the time you start to inculcate habits so that things which impact or bring diabetes into your body should be avoided.
So you start investing in yourself from the very beginning, from a young age. Yeah, keeping in mind what your parents or your grandparents, your ancestral, what they have in the gene, usually.
And again, expert-led.
Yeah, of course. You have to keep that in mind. Well, I think before we get back to our discussion, it'll be interesting to see if you all have any specific questions when it comes to health. Then we can always go back to our thing, because let's try and understand what they really want to know while we are having our conversation. But maybe you all have something specific. So are there any questions which, yeah.
So moving to the questions, I would request Srijo from Ramanujan College to please stand so that we can hand over the mic to you. Yeah. And I would request Kalpana to please hand over the mic. You can put across your question.
Good afternoon, sir. So my question to you is, as young India faces rising lifestyle diseases and a growing protein-focused fitness trend, should we rely on the Western symptom-based, solutions, or should we go back to our holistic Ayurvedic approaches of overall nutrition and well-being?
We were talking.
Yeah. So again, I would say, it's my personal, orientation. It has to be a combination. There is no one system which works perfect in harmony, and the balance has to be the right. When you talk about the current allopathic ecosystem, so when you say allopathic, you talk about digital. So digital is just a tool to intervene. It's not a system per se, right? Allopathic and Ayurveda, that's what you are talking about, right? So allopathy is essentially on the illness side of it, right? It's to manage. Pura MBBS or MD हमने कर लिया. It all tells you if this is the symptom, this is how it should be managed. It doesn't essentially tell you how do you not get a symptom, right? While on the holistic side of it, there are more practices. It's Ayurveda again is a science which is more to treat diseases from a different plant source, things. But there is a therapy within Ayurveda which talks about prevention of diseases, right? And it all talks about doing simple pranayams or meditation exercises and doing healthy eating also. So I would say a more preventive approach would be to understand how you do those simple, respiratory based exercise, again based on expert advice, so that you have any contraindication you can avoid for. But what all food, what all common practices, hygiene as well as non-hygiene related practices, what you should inculcate on a daily basis to prevent such disease to happen to you. So that's where the holistic approach comes into the picture, right? At the time of, even if you talk about Unani, Ayurveda, anything, they're all treatment management of illnesses. Approaches could be combined.
Did that answer your question?
Thank you, sir, for the answer. Moving forward, I would request Himanshu from Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies to please put across the question.
Good afternoon, sir. So my question is that what is the single most important preventive steps young Indians can start today that would make the biggest difference to their long-term health?
Knowing what you need.
Knowing what to eat.
Knowing what you need.
Knowing what you need.
Like better health.
So again, this is a very open term. Knowing what you need means, as I said, personalization is the key. What, as a person, from a understanding your family need, your body needs, what is that is required for you. Understanding is the first liberation attitude. If you don't know, you won't track. You won't track, you won't know. So first of all,
understanding,
awareness.
I think
That's
what
what I'm
yeah.
saying, because
Yeah.
I see the larger problem is not knowing the stuff. Once you know, you can start tracking and start managing.
So clearly knowing, I think awareness and knowing, right? And
I
that's
can
when-
relate it to my medical science.
Sure, I think that will help.
Yeah, we can treat only when we diagnose. When we diagnose, when we investigate. So you should know to diagnose and investigate to do it the diagnosis. Then you can do the management.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Moving forward, I would request Shaurya Singh Rawat from Dayal Singh College to please put across the question. Yes, can we have the mic to him?
I think one of the participants already questioned my whatever I was gonna ask. However, I'd like to ask about the common myths surrounding preventative care and how these affect the common youth currently and how these may affect in the long term. Also, how do you tackle these in a way where people are more aware about these common myths and situations, the so-called nuskhe to say? Could you shed some light on this topic?
I would suggest to stay away from commonalities because these are too generic. I'm multiple time talking about personalization and what is required for you. Common health conditions, their prevalence, how they can be detected, how they can be managed, how they can be taken care of. Plethora of information is across, right? But this is good to know. This is good to speak in a forum. For you, it is important to understand what is relevant for you in the context of the health, right? So I would seek, rather than understanding a common situations, I can say, okay, there are 60% population which is suffering from such disease, mental health is prevalent, such disease. We have been speaking about those things, but that won't help. That will only give you the tip of the iceberg, right? And we all know diabetes, hypertension, and mental health cancers are the common conditions. But what you need specifically, that is something I would like to dig out.
So I think what Dr. Lalit is really trying to emphasize is that know yourself. I think be aware of what your body needs, what you need. Of course, the basics of, correct me if I'm wrong, the basics about eating right, being mindful of what we eat, physical exercise, ensuring that your mental well-being is good, interacting with your friends, family. Those things, of course, those would be common. Yeah, those are basic. These are regular. And of course, if there's anything specific, that's where you need to work on. I think personalization is something which you have been going time and again, probably because you've realized, before we go to the next question, I think something which we see now is fads. Whether it is everybody is doing this, and I think for the youngsters even more, because it's a fad or because of the pressure that, all my friends, or I would say like for coffee, we were discussing, everybody is into this kind of coffee, or should we have coffee with a spoon of coconut oil in the morning? Will that work for my system? Yes or no? But it may work for some celebrity. So what is your take on fads when it comes, and let's specifically keep it to the youth, because they do have more pressures when it comes to keeping it, more with it.
So I think fads are more to do with the social status, right? And that's to showcase yourself, okay, I'm also falling into the trend, right? There is a way to showcase you're falling into a trend, but don't mess that stuff with your health,
Okay.
right? Be aware. So again, awareness is the key, as I said, understanding what you need. But fads, I guess the term is slightly
Diets, intermittence, ketos, you know, there's so many things. I mean, whether it's fats or whether it's like,
right. So again, as I said, just to take a specific example, intermittent fasting, right? And there are various ways of doing intermittent fasting. There are people do 1 day, 1 diet, right? Have you heard of that? ONOD? 1 day, 1 diet. No, this is just 1 day, 1 diet, and you do it 1 day morning, 1 day afternoon, 1 day at a dinner time. There are 2 meals a day. And then there is a ritual of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Right? Intermittent. So intermittent is also various types of intermittent. Again, through an expert, you need to understand, basis your BMI conditions, basing your pre-existing conditions, what is that intermittent is required for you. If it is a type 1 diabetes, probably an intermittent diet may be dangerous for you. If you have some kind of, we call it acidosis syndrome, right? Keto diets may be insignificant or dangerous for you. So the fats are not for everyone. That's why I'm saying it should not be doing the herd mentality. Again, understand if a particular fat, try to understand the basics of it, and whether it is meant for you or not, try to get that from an expert. If it is meant for you, probably follow that fat, it's okay. But just don't do it for the sake of it.
yeah, be sure that I think it's meant for you and it'll work for you. Can we have the next question?
Yes. So after this insightful answer, I would like to move forward with the question from Jay from Shahid Sukhdev College of Business. Please stand so that we can put across the question. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. So my question is that what's one bold reform India must implement in next 5 years to truly build a healthier generation?
Sorry, can you just repeat?
So what's one bold reform should India take in next 5 years?
One
Bold reform.
bold reform, okay.
Yeah, must implement in next 5 years to make a healthier generation.
You're talking from a policy perspective, from an individual perspective.
From a policy perspective.
Okay, though it depends on a lot of political will, but I would really want to incentivize the preventive health or investment in the preventive health, and attaching your tax assumptions or deductions to your investment in the preventive wellness. आज आप टैक्स पे करते हो, ATD मिलता है आपको just on the insurance premium, right? What you do spend on prevention of your health. If you have taken a, let's say, disease prevention or a, let's say walkathon thing, if you have invested on that, do you get a tax benefit for that? Don't. So I would urge if the policy can be changed to an extent where people can get the tax benefits on expenses incurred on your preventive health scenarios.
People will run towards it. Yeah.
So that is a bold reform, I would say. It's a bold as well as reform.
Yeah.
Sheen, do we have any more questions? Yes. So the next question is by Gaurav Yadav from Netaji Subhash University of Technology. Yes, please put across your question.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. My question, as earlier asked by one of the fellow friends, like about Ayurveda. My question is that with 3 new Ayurveda institutions announced in the new budget, what steps you believe can be taken to meet Ayurvedic practice and medicine to global standards and recognition?
So, as I understand, the steps are already being taken, and there is a great representation to WHO from one of the Ayurveda experts. I know him personally. He was taking it Ayurveda as a global standards, and there are attempts to make Ayurveda being accepted in various countries, which is already being practiced, right? Again, a very generic answer, I would say, the 3 institutions which are being opened, in terms of, Ayurveda is just to promote the holistic wellness approach. And it's one small step in terms of just not managing the disease through the holistic treatment. It's also to do the preventive aspect of the holistic treatment, which is to be inculcated in this institution. So I think that's a small one, but I think it would follow a larger trend.
Well, thank you all for those questions. I think we are, just the other thing, thank you all in fact, but we'll come back if you all have more questions, if you want to rethink something else which you'll want to ask Dr. Lalit. The other thing which I think we must discuss here I mean, because we're on this platform, we've spoken about fads, we've spoken about mental health, when we talk about the policy shift, when we talk about behavior change, where are we lacking to ensure that we're really a truly healthy India? The behavior shift, whether it's the mindset, whether it's actually taking care of one's health, whether, because see, Dr. Lalit, if one person in a family is unwell, it impacts the entire family, right? So each one is impacted. So where do you think really is the gap? Besides, of course, which we've spoken a lot, is on prevention.
See, again, behavior, when we speak, we generally put it on the individual, which I don't feel is the right way of doing it. While yes, individual behavior is what drives the larger stuff, the behavior has to come from all the pillars of the healthcare ecosystem, be it the employer's behavior towards the employees, be the policy makers' behavior towards the health ecosystem, be it the health service providers' behaviors towards the servicing they are providing to the people. But when it comes to individual, one major shift which is required from a behavior change perspective is not to look at the short-term gratifying rewards which you do from small fads or non-fad stuff. Look at the long-term aspect of the intervention you do today.
Okay.
Right? I think that is what behavior we don't see much. Even if I have to, so I can talk about my father. When I was talking to him to take a life insurance policy. He said, why should I think about dying? Right? So it's a behavior.
Mindset.
It's a mindset. So that is where I would like to think, especially for the young guys, because you think of salaries, perks, taxes to a greater extent, and which are very, very short term. What would happen in the next financial year? What is happening in the next 3 months itself? Right? So that is the short term, behavioral mindset we have with respect. And same goes for the health. ठीक है, seasonal flu होगा, देख लेंगे, manage कर लेंगे, right? But the behavioral thinking has to come into the picture with respect to my health. What could happen to me or me alike after 20 years?
And think forward. Invest in today, thinking forward.
Thinking forward. And it's similar to creating a corpus in NPS.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, the last question which I'm going to ask you is, so the panel before this was of course on AI, and we were talking about how artificial intelligence, but also I want to talk about tech and health. One of the panelists did speak about how health is a space where there is a huge gap when it comes to using AI. But we're also seeing innovations. India, we know we have a huge shortage of doctors, medical staff, and that gap is being filled by basic things like something like telemedicine. We've seen a robotic surgery being held, at a distant place, and people have been cured. What is your take, because we have the youth sitting here who are interested in AI, they are the future, when it comes to innovation using technology in healthcare?
Two things. I think innovation and technology is slightly different while there is a overlap. You spoke about robotic surgery. It's an innovation, but it's not something for mass users, right? This is more to adopt
access, yeah, for
right?
the
When it comes to a lot of B2C startups, which are adopting technologies, and I'll give you an example. I was, going through one of the company who is using the olfactory or the smell power of dogs to diagnose diseases, right? Very interesting use case, and what they are using, when you blow out in a chamber, they just keep your breath sample and let the dog smell that breath sample, and they are having some helmet kind of stuff, and with the brain's signals depicted from the sense, the sense of smell, they are trying to correlate using AI the kind of disease it has. Very interesting use case. Now, when it comes to the youth adopting AI or adopting technologies, you should look at the technologies which are validated, are expert guided. Because in healthcare, I have found this kind of a problem wherein a lot of technologies are being created but are not validated from a clinical perspective. And that falls into the trap of giving you the wrong information just because the technology is quite attractive and it becomes a fad in a way, right?
So be sure of what you're really using.
Absolutely. Be always mindful of doing the right background check of what this technology is yielding and how it is being built, what are the credibility behind it. Whether there are clinical engines who are supporting, there are validation protocols, and everybody disclaims on their website or platform. The no disclaimers, I would understand there is no
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what you just shared, about the dogs using, visually impaired women were using, because they were trained in such a way to actually diagnose breast cancer. And I had covered this, as one of my stories, since I've been covering health. And it was interesting to see again how they were using it. It's not tech or, again, there's a thin line between tech and innovation, but yes, they were using it, So, there are different case studies, what you see, but well, thank you so much for that insightful conversation, and I hope you guys have enjoyed at least understanding a little bit what we've been trying to talk about longevity and actually really, really what true health means. Thank you so much, Dr. Lalit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lalit and Ambika ma'am, for carrying out such a great panel discussion for us as our final panel on reimagining healthcare for young India, longevity, lifestyle, and preventive care. I want to extend this note of thanks to both of you as today's conversation reminded us that healthcare is not just about treating illness, it is about protecting human potential. And the insights shared on prevention, lifestyle, mental well-being, and long-term health made it very clear that investing in health is essential to individual dignity, workforce productivity, and national progress. Can we all extend a huge round of applause for both of them and for everyone for answering such great questions.
Big round of applause to each one of you. You've been listening to us and actually being interactive. I've done so many of these panel discussions and interacted with audiences, but you all have really been interactive and have been listening. Thank you.
Definitely. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as we come close to the Nation Building Conclave 2026, I would like to thank each one of you for being a part of today's conversations. Across all the 4 panel discussions, we explored some of the most defining questions for young India, from balancing career, cause, and country to India's economic trajectory, the future of digital public infrastructure, and reimagining healthcare. What stood out throughout the day was a shared belief that nation building is not limited to institutions or policymakers alone. It begins when ordinary people choose to show up with intent, curiosity, and responsibility. On behalf of the entire team, I extend our sincere gratitude to all our panelists for sharing their time, experience, and insights. Thank you for guiding this room with clarity, perspective, and purpose, which we really wanted. And to all the students present here today, thank you for your thoughtful questions. Your energy and your willingness to engage have really felt very amazing for us. We hope you leave not just with ideas, but with a stronger sense of direction and the confidence to participate meaningfully in India's growth story. To all our students, refreshments are now being served inside the hall, and we request the Nation Building Impact Chapter team and Conclave Engagement Coordinator to please meet the organizing team near the stage area. With that, we conclude the Nation Building Conclave 2026. Can we all put a huge round of applause as we come to the end of it? And now we conclude this wonderful evening. Cheers to everyone. Thank you so much.